Okay, you're all very welcome to this webinar on a lovely February balmy afternoon. My name is Gerard Fealy. I'm the Professor of Nursing and Dean of Nursing and Head of School at the UCD School of Nursing, Midwifery and Health Systems. And I'm wearing my Researcher Professor of Nursing hat this afternoon. My colleague Kevin Deegan is alongside me. Kevin is Research Assistant on this project, and he's based in Carolines, yeah. Ireland. So Kevin's just saying hello there.
Hello all.
Okay. So you're all very welcome, as I say. Now, I want to give a brief overview of the research team. And as you can see from this slide, there are several organizations involved in this project, including ourselves at UCD, Carolines Ireland, St Vincent's University Hospital, the Alzheimer's Society of Ireland, Family Carers Ireland, and HSE. And we also have a team of family carers, or a group of family carers, who have worked with us over the last 18 months to 2 years on this project, and we say a little bit more about them. The project, as you can see from the master slide and the heading of each slide, is funded by the Health Research Board and Atlantic Philanthropies. So I'd just like to say a little bit about the aims and objectives of the webinar, but before I do that, I just want to list off the team members. And as you can see there are 8 members of the team, and majority of us are based at UCD and Family Carers, at Carolines Ireland. The team comprises mainly academics, researchers, and consultant in geriatric medicine. Those are the names. I'm not going to call them all out. So why are we here this afternoon? Well, we're here to disseminate some key findings from a project that we've been working on over the last 3+ years. And I'll just give you a little bit of background. During the second half of last year, 2018, we conducted a series of regional workshops throughout the country, and we also conducted one webinar in October last. The overall aim of our workshops and webinars is to communicate information both to family carers and to others who have an interest in the subject of dementia, caregiving, and resilience. And in an effort to further spread our research beyond family carers, we are conducting this particular webinar as a way of introducing health and social care professionals to our research who would otherwise may not be aware of our research on this particular project. And I should also mention at the start that our project is just one of a number of projects that were funded by the Health Research Board and Atlantic Philanthropies back in 2015. And the majority of those projects are nearing completion or have been completed in the very recent past. And I would also like to just point out as we start the webinar that while we will provide some practical information in this webinar around caregiving, given the limitations of the webinar setting, our focus will be really on sharing our research information, our research findings, and also towards the end of the webinar to demonstrate a newly developed web resource that we've developed with our family carers. So the specific aims of the webinar, as I said, are to share information on what we've done over the past 3 years and what we've learned about specifically resilience and caring for someone with dementia, and from our research, and we also want to share what we found from other research. So the objectives of the webinar are to describe what is currently known about resilience and caring for somebody with dementia, highlighting why the topic of resilience is relevant to caring for someone with dementia, to describe the results of a survey of family carers of people with dementia in Ireland, which we completed in 2016, to describe how we went about developing the online resource for family carers of people with dementia in partnership with family carers. And we'd like to show you some of the main features of that web resource later on. And we also want to provide you with an opportunity to give some feedback. So just to begin, I'm going to give a little bit about the project overview and the context of the project, and to start with a little bit about the background to this project. So why did we study this particular topic? Well, as many of you will know, the government launched the Irish National Dementia Strategy in 2014. And the aim of the strategy is to address dementia at a national level and across 6 key areas. And these areas are better awareness and understanding about dementia, better timely diagnosis and interventions, and this includes developing a national and local pathway for dementia, integrated services, supports and care for people with dementia and their carers, and that's really looking at ways to increase supports in the home and in the community, such as home care packages and the like, training and education, research and leadership. And as you can see, we've highlighted research because that's where we come in. And with regard to the call for more research, one aim of the strategy was to get better information and data on the needs of people with dementia and their carers, as well as determining what works for family carers and people with dementia in terms of supports. We are one, as I said, of a number of research groups that have set about examining these issues, and our research group particularly focused on family carers of people with dementia. So just to say a little bit more about the national strategy, it recognizes that dementia can have a negative effect on family carers. It can adversely affect their physical health, their mental health and well-being, and it also can have social and economic impacts. Our research was concerned with what can be done to help family carers weather these adverse effects. And when people can cope with the negative impacts of a particular situation, we call them resilient. That is, and that was our starting point for our research. So we wanted to know more about resilience and how might resilience among family carers of people with dementia be enhanced. So with this very busy slide, it really summarizes all of the elements of our project. Our project involved 3 main parts, and we call these work packages. So in the first work package, we wanted to know more about resilience and family carers of people with dementia. So we conducted a systematic review of all the available published information on this subject. And having selected relevant literature, we assessed it, and in assessing it, we were particularly interested in the quality of the information in the published research and other literature. And in addition, we also wanted to learn more about family carers of people with dementia in Ireland, including what helps them to be resilient. So we conducted a national survey with family carers, and I'll say a little bit more about that presently. In the second work package, based on the information we gathered in work package 1, we then set about developing a resource to support family carers that was aimed at enhancing their resilience. To do this, we believed it was important to look more closely at what resilience means to family carers themselves, and what are the things that help them to be more resilient. And so to that end, we invited family carers to come together and work with the research team to develop and design a resource to support carers. The research team and the family carers worked together for over a year in developing the resource. And we'll talk about the resource a little bit later in the webinar, and we'll share some of the materials with you. And in the final work package 3, we wanted to make sure that the resource that we co-design with family carers works as it is intended. That is, that it's a good quality resource. So we conducted some evaluations and feasibility testing of the resource among family carers, not the same family carers who were part of our design team. So now I want to say a little bit about resilience and why study resilience and caregiving. So why is it important to learn more about resilience and caring for someone with dementia? Well, we know that caring for someone with dementia is very challenging and can have very negative effects on carers. It can result in poor health, negative social and financial effects, and it can be socially isolating and can negatively impact on well-being more generally. But we also know that many family carers do okay despite these challenges. They are able to bounce back and cope with the physical and psychological demands of caring, and some describe caring as a positive experience despite the challenges. And these carers are viewed as resilient. But not a lot is understood about what makes some carers more resilient than others. but we were of the view that if we could improve our understanding of resilience and caring for someone with dementia, it would help us to develop a resource that could enhance resilience in family carers. And ultimately, this would enable family carers to recover from and adapt to the challenges of caring for someone with dementia, which in turn would mean that people with dementia could remain at home for longer if desired. So what do we know about resilience and family carers? We know that if a carer is more resilient, she or he has the resources to counterbalance the negative effects of hardship and make positive adaptations to the demands of caregiving. And our slide is trying to sort of capture that particular point. And so carers who are resilient are able to use their internal resources to make better use of external resources like health and social care services and support networks to help them cope with the stresses of caring. So if carers can be more resilient, they will be more connected socially and more resourceful in assessing services and supports, thus reducing the burden and isolation of their caregiving roles, which we know can happen. So as a way of just engaging with you as an audience, and I know we're just audio and slides, we'd just like to maybe ask you at this point, if you yourselves, those of you out there in cyberspace, I guess, to say what resilience means to you as a health and or social care professional. And we'll take maybe a maximum of 15 minutes to do this. We may not need all that time, but we're willing to keep it open until then. And I know Kevin is monitoring.
Yes, so thanks, Gerard, for that very prompt introduction and very concise amount of information about what the project is and what it has accomplished as of yet. So again, my name is Kevin Deegan. I'm a research assistant with Care Alliance, working with the project with Gerard and many others over the last year or so. With this particular webinar, if you feel like you want to leave a comment, pass remark on the material that's being presented while Gerard is speaking, you're free to do so. In the Zoom software, which you're all probably using either for the first time or haven't used previously before, or you're very much in depth about it, compared to myself or Gerard, who are still coming to terms with the software. If you wish to leave a comment, you can click into the top bar and you can open up the chat in the More section, and you can click all panelists and attendees, and you can leave a message for ourselves. There's a message here from Laura Reid, who is from the Alzheimer's Society. She says, hello. I want to say that carer advocates from the Dementia Carers Campaign Network were delighted to take part in this research. There was real and meaningful input from carers in in-care. So thank you, Laura, for that comment. We were very appreciative of that fact.
Thank you, Laura, and you mentioned in your comment, Laura, in-care, and we'll say a bit more about what that means and how we came about that with that acronym presently. But thank you very much for that comment.
Thank you, Laura. So as we say with the slide on your screen in front of you, if you want to leave a comment or a question, a remark through this, what does resilience mean to you as a health professional or a social care professional? What does resilience mean to you working with family carers who may be affected by dementia, etc.? So we have a comment from Liam. Hi Liam, thanks for commenting. Helping my clients get through the caring journey without despairing too much. Thanks Liam for your comment. Francis Maloney, how many carers took place in this study?
Oh, okay, Francis, there are a number of elements to that. There's a national survey, which we say about it in a moment, and also there were we had family carers who took part in the end care group themselves, and that was a smaller group of family carers who were really essentially part of our team, and so we'll say a little bit more about that, but we had 4 men and 4 women who were family carers. And just to be specific, 6 were adult child carers and 2 were spousal carers. But we say a bit more about that. But we also, as I say, generated information from a national survey. We surveyed at 400, but I'll give you more precise figures as we come to that little bit later on, if that's okay. And thank you, Liam, for your comments also. And we'll pick up on that. And I
think he mentions a good comment, Liam.
Please do, yeah.
Helping my clients get through the caring journey without despairing too much. how would a healthcare professional or a social care professional maybe encourage maybe a family carer to go about using this resource? We can mention at the end.
Yes.
I think it would be helpful for the healthcare professional to know about this resource.
Yes, indeed, and those healthcare professionals who are logged on to this webinar. I mean, that's a question from Liam in Carolines, Ireland. Thank you, Liam. I'm assuming it's yourself from Carolines, Ireland, Liam. Thank you. I think that's a very good question, and I think if we direct it back out to our participants in the webinar, and we welcome comments, and we might pick that up a little bit later on. And the first comment from Alzheimer's Society of Ireland, just to say that I think that's a very important comment, and the one thing that we can say about this project, and I hope that the first couple of slides, particularly with those with all those nice logos, demonstrate that this was a really major collaborative project, and a key feature of the project was the number of organizations that took part, both on the advisory panel that actually guided myself and the research team in the project, and gave us guidance and advice throughout, but also, as we'll be saying and demonstrating presently, the number of family carers who are not just part of the NCare group developing the resource, but there were also family carers on the project advisory group, which actually had an oversight steering function.
Thanks, Gerard. We had another comment in from Una Hume, pardon me. The nature of the condition means that the caring role changes over time. To me, resilience is the ability to adapt and change and try new approaches. But that's an interesting statement, because there was similar comments made throughout the development of the resource, Gerard. Is that correct?
Very, very much so. And as you'll see, Una, when we come to describe the resource, that's a very critical point, the change over time. And in fact, the one thing that the family carers, that was very evident from our work with the family carers, as we show presently, was that in fact, when you take on the caring role first, your experiences and your adaptation and your ability to adapt, is at a certain point when you realize you are a family carer, and it changes over time. And the web resource that we've developed actually is designed specifically around the idea that family caring in dementia, for a family member with dementia, is in fact a journey. And so we don't just sort of, the resource doesn't present just a snapshot in time. It's actually, there, as we see, and you see from some of the examples that the testimonials from family carers themselves in little video clips speaks to this, different stages of the journey, and some of the video clips that will show that it's early or later in the journey, or indeed we even, we also, Una, address after caring, or when the caring role is no longer, the carer no longer has that role.
Perfect. Thanks, Gerard. Thanks, Una, for that wonderful comment. Thank you. If you have any more comments throughout, we'll be happy to hear from you. Another comment from Florence Mafosa. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Resilience means to be in a good position to give the best care, even though dementia is a challenging condition to deal with. Thanks, Florence. That's an interesting statement.
Yeah. Thank you, Florence.
Now, so if anyone else happens to have a thought or idea about what resilience means to you as a health professional or social care professional, we're happy to take your comments.
Okay, and if I'm going too fast out there on this webinar, if I'm on the web, if I'm going a little bit too fast, please don't be afraid to send in the comments, say, Gerard, will you slow down, please? But as we proceed through, we have a lot of information to share this afternoon. And we will, I know we gave a long list of objectives at the start, but we will endeavour to not to rush it, but at the same time not to go beyond the time that we've allocated, because we all know you have busy jobs, and you've taken time out, I suspect, to contribute and to participate in this webinar.
Absolutely. Just for anyone joining us, I know that we have a few extra participants as we're going on, so you're more than welcome. My name is Kevin Deegan, and I'm a research assistant with Carolines, working with Professor Gerard Fealy from UCD with the School of Nursing. He's the Dean himself. He's been in charge of this project for the last 3 years with a group of individuals who have been happy enough to kind of pitch in with their wisdom and ideas throughout. So welcome. As we're saying and speaking throughout this webinar, if you see the slide in front of you, we'll be having an open discussion as well as we can in regards to the webinar setting. So if you have any comments you want to leave, please do. We will be carrying on with the material now in just a moment, and Gerard will continue on presenting the research.
Very good. And we might just give it another 30 seconds or so. And if no other comment or question comes in, then perhaps we'll pick it up where we left off. So the next slide.
Hi, Francis. So we have another comment from Francis. Resilience for me is about pacing yourself so that you can endure the various stages of dementia. Interesting comment.
Yeah, thank you, Francis. Yeah, I've not heard that phrase "pacing yourself" before, but I think it's absolutely, it's kind of it's consistent with the notion of striking a balance as well, and not sort of wasting up all your energy, like I think the metaphor of a racer or a marathon runner. Maybe the marathon is the metaphor you're really using there, Francis, but certainly. You don't want to use up all up your energy in the first few miles and then run out of energy towards the end. So I think it's a very, very good way of describing it, and it's a really good metaphor to capture it. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Francis. Interesting comment.
Yep.
Gerard, would you be happy to move on?
Yeah,
if there's any more comments, I will say I'm monitoring the feed. So
good.
If Gerard wishes to move on, we will, and I will have more comments to go through as we go on. We have more time for this. So
okay, thank you, Kevin. Okay, so we've finished part one of the webinar, and we took time out just for some comments. And in this second part of the webinar, we want to share with you some of the things that we learned from our own research, and we want to report really to you what we found when we looked at other research, as you'd expect us to do in a project like this. And we also want to share the findings from our own research, and somebody asked earlier about the number of participants, and we'll say about that presently. Can I just, at the risk of sort of speaking to the converted, but just in terms of and those who are very, very familiar with terminology and research, but can I just share with you just a few kind of terms that actually have particular meaning in research of the kind that we're doing and the kind we're reporting this afternoon. As you probably know, researchers often use the term intervention to describe in this area of research any new method of care or support or a new resource that wasn't available to the carer previously. So that's what an intervention is in this context. And researchers also refer to the effects of an intervention as the outcomes. And as you know, researchers rarely say that one thing causes another thing. Instead, they write that one thing was associated with another thing. So for example, they may write that a carer's training intervention is associated with better carer coping. So we want to really tell you about some of the things that we learned from this research, what we found from other researchers, and we also want to share, as I said earlier, what our own findings from our own research among family carers was. So we began by reviewing what published information is already available on resilience and caring for someone with dementia in the academic literature. We conducted a systematic review of literature, and while we found a lot of information in our initial search, we selected only those published articles, for example, and reports that we judged to be of good quality for inclusion in our systematic review. We examined 91 different information sources, and we found that they could be grouped into three main categories. And these were studies examining the context of caring, such as the relationship of the person being cared for and the caregiver and the care recipient, the levels of social support for the family carer, and the time spent in the caring role. The second group or category of studies were studies examining social and cultural characteristics of the carer, such as age, the socioeconomic circumstances, their level of education, and so forth. And the third category were studies examining psychological effects of caring. So a lot of information on this slide, so I'll just run through the main findings from our literature review, our systematic review. And I should point out at this stage that this systematic review is published in the academic press, and we'll share that citation with you. We'll send it out to all who are on the website.
Yes, if anyone is interested in the actual report, the systematic review, it is available online. Gerard will be happy to forward on to you. He can contact my email address will be at the end of this session. So if you want to find out further information about that, you can email me and I can relay that information to Gerard.
Very good. And we will be obliged to send the online link rather than the actual article itself, and that's for copyright reasons, really. So coming back to this very busy slide. So in terms of the categories of studies that looked at the context of caring, what did we find? Well, we found that spousal carers experience more negative effects from caring. Living with the care recipient was associated with lower resilience. The time spent caring, the lower were the levels of resilience. Combining caring responsibilities with other family responsibilities increases stress levels. And in terms of the social and cultural characteristics of the caregiver, having better social support networks was associated with lower levels of depression. Using formal supports were associated with higher resilience. Women were more likely to experience depression in the caregiving role. Religion was found to positively impact on carer well-being. And then the third category of academic papers that we looked at, the psychological aspects. If the caregiver felt in control of the situation and felt competent as a carer, they were more likely to be resilient. And those with positive outlooks on the caring role were also more likely to be resilient. Now, in addition to the systematic review, we also conducted an analysis of studies which contain statistical results of intervention studies. So we conducted, we analyzed a group of studies that were published, and we combined the results of all of the studies together and did our own statistical analysis of these studies. And as you will be aware, this is termed a meta-analysis. It's a high-level analysis. And we did this with 42 studies that examined the effects of interventions on carer resilience. And when we did our meta-analysis, we grouped the types of interventions to improve carer resilience as follows: multi-component or combined studies. These included educational support groups and skills training type interventions, educational interventions alone, counselling interventions that included individual and family counselling, and then what we termed alternative interventions. And these were things like meditation. There were not that many in the literature, but there were some. So when we analysed the results, we concluded that interventions had a generally positive effect on family carer outcomes, and that different interventions have differing degrees of success when targeted at specific carer outcomes. So our study, our statistical analysis revealed that psychosocial interventions have a small to moderate significant impact on carer burden, carer depression, and general health. And although the overall effect on quality of life was not statistically significant, the intervention outcomes were moving towards significance, that's statistical significance. And from our meta-analysis study, we concluded that while psychosocial interventions had a generally positive impact on carer outcomes, given the fact that the studies were quite different in the design, population size, methods, and so forth, we couldn't really, we could only interpret these results with a degree of caution. And of course, we will argue and have argued in our paper that further studies are needed to identify those interventions that are the most effective in providing support for family carers of people with dementia. And we will also argue that further research into the underlying psychosocial mechanisms of psychosocial interventions so that in order to develop support systems for family carers of people with dementia. And I should mention that we have an academic paper that is currently with the editor under peer review and with one of the academic journals, and we're hopeful that particular study, that meta-analysis study, will get published in due course. Okay, so now to the national survey that we conducted. So as we said at the outset, we conducted some reviews of literature. We conducted we examined studies that looked at interventions and we also examined, we did this meta-analysis, high-level statistical analysis of 42 studies. In addition, we conducted a survey of just over 400 carers of people with dementia. And that study was aimed at examining carers' experiences of caring for a person with dementia. We administered a questionnaire by post to a sample of family carers who were in receipt of a carer's allowance and for caring for a relative with dementia. And to distribute that questionnaire, we engaged with the Department of Social Protection, who actually administered this survey questionnaire on our behalf. It was a postal survey. Now, of course, the questionnaire was anonymous. That is, we did not know the names or any details of the respondents. That was anonymized to us. So what did we learn from the survey of family carers, the 400 who responded? Well, not all 400 responded, but we had a very, very good response rate. And the average age of family carers was 59 years, with the ages ranging from 21 to 89 years. So you can see a broad range of ages. Half of the carers were aged between 46 and 64. 2/3 of the carers were female and 1/3 were male. 2/3 of the carers were married, so they were spousal caregivers. Well over half, specifically 58%, just to add that figure, were a spouse of the care recipient. And almost 3/4 lived with the relative who had dementia, and most had reported that they had not received any training for their role as a carer of someone with dementia. So then we asked them about their choice of becoming a carer. What was it that brought them into the caring role? The vast majority, 93% in fact, said that it was their own choice to become a family carer. Most made the choice to become a family carer for many reasons, and these included the emotional bonds they had with their care recipient, a personal sense of obligation, a personal sense of duty, and because it made them feel good. And we had a questionnaire that listed all those possible reasons, and we were able to extract that. Some chose to become a carer because of the very high cost of professional care, or because they had no alternative. And other reasons included, there were no alternatives. I found myself in circumstances almost by chance without making a decision. And we find that last one particularly common when we see some of the video testimonials. It's very often the experience. Suddenly, a family carer sort of wakes up one day and realizes that they're a family carer.
Yes.
And then in relation to the supports that family carers receive, we asked them about the kind of supports that they receive, and if they needed to take a break from the caring role, what supports were there. This is what they told us. Just over half of the carers responded that if they needed a break from caregiving, they could find someone, but with great difficulty. 1/3 of the carers said that they could find someone to help quite easily, but a substantial number, a little bit below 20%, said that they had no one that could relieve them from their caring role. The services that they most commonly accessed or were provided for the family carers with dementia were GP services, public health nursing services, home health services, practice nurse services, and daycare centre services. We also wanted to know about the factors that were associated with resilience, and what are the things that made this sample of 400 more resilient. This is what they told us. Family carers who have a good quality or a high quality relationship with their care recipient were more likely to be resilient than those carers who did not have a good relationship with their care recipient. Family carers who make their own choice to become a family carer were more likely to be resilient than those who take on caring out of necessity or not of their own choice. Family carers were more resilient if their care recipient had fewer challenging behaviours, that is, behaviours that were difficult to manage. And they also said that those family carers indicated that they were more resilient if the experienced family support is helpful to them in their caregiving role. So when we combined what we learned from other research, that is from our systematic review and our meta-analysis, and from our own study, you know, I guess came up with the most salient facts about family carers, and what are the take-home facts here? We know that resilience in family carers of people with dementia is influenced by many factors, including the individual carer's own personality and emotional responses, the social circumstances of caring, such as the living arrangements, the levels of informal and formal support, and the stage of the family carer's dementia, and that was mentioned in one of the comments earlier on. So what seems to be important is the carer's own decision to become a carer. So at this point, we're going to ask you to, we're going to invite you again to discuss the highlights of the research and how you think it relates to your experiences, to your role as a professional, or indeed to the family carers of the people that you might be caring for. And we give about 5 minutes for this. And we've just put up a few questions just to help you, to stimulate your thoughts. One is, as healthcare professionals or social care professionals, can you relate to these findings as they're presented to you? In your professional experience, have you been involved in any form of social intervention that was aimed at promoting carer resilience, either explicitly aimed at it or you think actually was doing that? And in your professional experience, does the focus of care tend to be on the care recipient more than the family carer, him or herself? So there are a few pointers that you might think about in the next couple of minutes.
Thanks, Gerard. That's a very informative piece of information I have to provide in there. As Gerard was saying, while he's taking a breather, if you have a comment, question you wish to ask to Gerard, please send your comments through. We'll happily go through them ourselves. Una raising her hand. Una, would you like to speak? If I can allow you to speak, if you want to say a few words. No, that's no problem. Okay, that's after going down again. No problem, Una.
Okay, is that a technical no?
No, that's okay.
It's
a feature of the software.
Okay, very good, very good.
That's
excellent.
No problem, Una.
That's okay.
Sorry, press by mistake.
No problem, Una.
That's no problem. As we were saying, if there's any comments about the questions that are on your screen, please feel free to mention. Can you relate to the research that's presented as a healthcare professional in particular? Have you been involved in any other form of social intervention that was aimed at promoting care resilience? In your professional experience, does the focus of care tend to be on the care recipient more than the family carer? I think Gerard asked these questions. I think they're important to know if the focus is on the recipient of care or if it's the family carer that is the focus on. Yeah. I think these are important topics to be discussing. And I think this research project coming in, from my perspective, from coming in after 2 years, the project being done, it was, it almost seemed like an empty voice that wasn't being looked at. So it's good to know that there's research being conducted by Gerard and his ilk, so to speak, that is looking after the family carer, that's taking care of themselves, that's promoting this research. So.
And if I can be so bold as to answer the last question there, of course, you'd expect that the focus would be on the care recipient, because we tend to think of the person with dementia as in fact, you know, that person whom we should concentrate our efforts on. But the question, of course, maybe doesn't imply, but sort of asks us, well, if that's the case, you know, where is the family carer in this? And particularly, you know, in a webinar with health and social care professionals who are working very often directly with a care recipient who may be in on you know, sort of perhaps you know, in hospital for a period or going home pre-discharge. So these are some of the reasons why I put that last question there, recognizing that many of you will encounter not just persons with dementia, but indeed you may indeed be dealing with a family carer, and they may be the focus of your work.
I think the second question you pointed out as well, have you been involved in any form of social intervention previously yourself, Gerard, that's aimed at promoting care resilience. Would you know of anything yourself
Well,
involved with yourself?
Nothing specifically in resilience and family carers of people with dementia. This is our first, as we'll see later on, our first effort to do that, and we've developed. Where we're reluctant to call it an intervention. That's why we call it a resource and a support rather than an intervention.
Thanks, Gerard.
Yeah.
So we have a comment from Frances. Thank you, Frances. So she says, can totally relate to the research. Great to see it in writing. Here in Mayo, we have developed weekly social clubs for both the person with dementia and their +1. This has resulted in a natural knock-off effect for the carers where they have now built up relationships and are supporting each other during the week. Thank you, Francis. That's a very interesting statement.
Yeah, and Francis, in fact, you're really hitting the key thing about, and I commend you on your work in the west of Ireland. Where did you say? County Mayo. Oh, very good. My daughter-in-law is from Mayo, but that's beside the point. Yeah, because in a sense, it's about the social supports. I mean, that's one of the key things that so much research tells us is that the social supports, the clubs, the being socially connected is critical, because as you know, and as many of you out on the webinar will know, the caregiving in situations like this can be very socially isolating. The person can be caught up and have no time to look up or look around or engage socially, and clearly you're doing a very, very positive and a very commendable work in those weekly social clubs, Francis.
Thanks, Gerard. So we have another comment from Una. Thank you, Una. I think whether you focus on the carer or the person depends on your role. I have in the past run carer support groups, but in my current role, I run a group for persons with dementia accompanied by a family or friend, brackets carer. Interesting.
Yeah, thank you, Una. Yes, I think your approach is absolutely. Your comment is quite correct. That it really does depend on your role in the professional role that you occupy, and clearly some folks will be specifically focused on the carer, and others will be focused on the care recipient. But to include the two, is clearly the key to sort of to engaging and promoting, if you like, the personhood of the individual who has dementia. And I think, there's probably nobody out there who doesn't know somebody, apart from even your professional roles, who doesn't know someone with dementia, or some neighbor or family friend. So I think, bringing the care recipient and the person together is key.
Thank you, Rona. Thanks, Gerard, for that response. So if anybody else wants to have a comment or a question related to the statements or questions on the slides in front of you, please do let us know your comments and statements. As we said earlier on, if you wish to leave a comment throughout, that's not an issue as well. You don't have to wait for us to tell you to do so. We're all capable of that. We will probably move on now in a minute, as we're looking at time. So we're going to look on to the next part. But if anyone has any further comments about these questions, please just let us know.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for your comments. Okay, we're moving on now to talk about the resource to promote carers' resilience that we developed. Again, I stress, with family carers. And we want to really try to discuss how we use what we learned from the first part of our research, that is the national survey, the reviews of literature, and the meta-analysis study, where we looked at the statistical analysis of interventions and their effects. And we really want to talk quite a bit about, in fact, and this is the main part, this resource that we call the Take Care of Yourself resource. Okay, so while we knew that we wanted to develop a resource for family carers, we did not set out with a specific idea in mind of what that resource would look like. Instead, we wanted to work directly with family carers of people with dementia on designing something for carers by carers. And to do this, we adopted the participatory action research approach, and many of you are familiar with that term and with that type of research. And really, from our perspective, the value of having family carers work as co-researchers with the research team in developing this resource has been significant, as I hope we'll demonstrate. Their input has brought the resource in a direction that we really hadn't envisioned at the outset, and we believe that the quality of the work that we have done with them, including the resource itself, is much better as a result of the working in this collaborative way. And what we have learned, we've learned that research is greatly improved by the direct involvement of those who are most directly impacted by it. So with these principles in mind, we invited 8 family carers to take part in the family carers group, and we called the group the Enhancing Carers Resilience Group, or the NCARE group. The aim of the group was to plan and design a resource based on family carers' own definition of resilience, and to ensure that the resource was available to as many carers as possible. And the group consisted of 8 members in total, two who were staff, four men and 4 women. We had 6 adult child carers and 2 spousal carers. And the groups had a mix of caregiving experiences, from early caregiving role to later caregiving role. The group met on 11 occasions in total over about a year, so something around an average once a month. And over the course of the meetings, what emerged was that resilience is not infinite, and the 2 things in particular can undermine a carer resilience, and those were the lack of information and the lack of support. And while these might seem counterintuitive, they nevertheless came from the carers group themselves, not from the literature, from the people themselves who were on the group. And while carers noted that there's information that is publicly available, it tends to be fragmented across multiple sources. The family carers in our NCARE group said that it was time-consuming and frustrating to try to sift through information to find out what they needed at a particular time in the caregiving journey. And this was especially problematic when the carer also was experiencing stress. And all of our family carers agreed that while peer support is valuable, as a carer for someone with dementia, it can be very isolating and difficult to get out and access these supports. So what did we develop? Well, to address the 2 threats of carer resilience, that is lack of information and lack of support, we co-designed a one-stop information and support using an online resource support for family carers of people with dementia. And the information in this online resource is mapped out along a carer journey that allows the carer to access the information they need at a particular stage of caring, and it also provides a proxy of peer support through the use of carer stories. In other words, the peer support was there, not directly, but indirectly through the web resource.
Thanks, Gerard. Just before you continue, before you go on, we have a comment from Sarah in relation to the previous questions.
Thanks,
I'll
Sarah.
just read out. So thank you, Sarah. So Sarah says, where the focus lies stems from the manner in the delivery of the diagnosis. If a person is told their diagnosis and it is explained, the person is more open in engaging in access supports and services to assist them. Whereas if they are not informed, the focus is mainly on the family and to a degree, isolating the person from being actively involved to future care choices. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah. And in fact, Sarah, what you're really, touching on there is the whole idea of the personhood of the individual. Because it can often seem like, that there is a sort of a disconnect between the former life, the cognitively intact life of the individual and their new situation where they're cognitively and indeed functionally, disabled. And in a sense, to me, what you're saying is the personhood is maintaining the personhood despite the disability, if I can put it like that. And I think that's a very, very profound remark that you've made, and thank you for that, Sarah.
Now, Gerard, so I think we want to go have a look at the website
now.
Okay,
we're going to look at the resource, and Kevin is going to take us through some elements of the resource.
So thanks, Gerard. So as you can see from the screen in front of you, that the website was designed with the aid of family carers, primarily to focus on material that would help family carers and enhance their levels of resilience. So as we can see from the screen, there's plenty of videos here to show the carer stories that are aimed at enhancing the levels of resilience, and to show that there's levels of support out there that are accessible for family carers. So we'll have a look here. So Rachel speaks about coping with people's reactions. We have emotional impact of the diagnosis, with Rachel speaking of. We have Eamon talking about how maybe when driving becomes an issue. So it goes through various applications of different stages of dementia and how it impacts on being a family carer, how coping with the impacts of caring, where Eamon speaks of, and Maren also speaks of, let's say, family, community, and professional supports. So these are some of the videos in particular that Una speaks of here as well, dealing with repetition, dealing with everyday frustrations, where these family carers themselves that recorded these videos talk about their own caring experiences as family carers and how to deal with everyday frustrations, how to manage your feelings, tips for dressing. So there's a plethora of information available on this resource that goes through, as you can see. If you wish to have a look at the website yourself in particular, it's the website here, takecareofyourself.ie, and you can go on into your own time after this webinar also and have a look. So I think we'll focus now on the carer journey, and this is the website, this page in particular, which is the focus of the Take Care of Yourself resource. As you can see, Gerard, you're happy to correct me if I'm wrong.
No, yeah.
This carer journey starts from the beginning of, are you worried about dementia, or your loved one was just diagnosed with dementia? So as you can see from here, you can click in, find out more, what do we need to know? So if you're worried about dementia, it defines what necessarily as the umbrella term, and so it has a number of conditions which may not be just a single form of dementia. So it goes through in particular, should I be worried about dementia, its impact on how to get assessed and what you can do to find out information, etc., etc. So that goes through in great detail about where to go. And the idea of the carer journey is to take you through the various stages which you may be affected yourself as a family carer. So from a healthcare and social care professional perspective, from working with these family carers that are affected with this daily challenge, it's the idea of promoting this resource to family carers that have people with dementia in their families, that you are able to promote this resource and these elements of family carer stories to show them that they are not alone. So as you can see, am I a family carer? If you click into here, it goes through great detail as a carer is someone who provides regular unpaid personal help. And that's based off the Census of Population of Ireland from the CSO. And this goes through into greater detail. Again, we'll have a video from Rachel. It talks about how she decided, or she learned how she was an actual family carer herself.
And of course, the last part of the journey is living after caring. We might just do one little clip of that, Kevin.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just one little scroll down and see what's out there. Okay. Okay. There we go.
So as you can see, the website is being updated as it speaks. So
that's okay.
There's some material that will be added.
That's right. Yeah, it's a work in progress, but so, yeah. Okay. Thank you, Kevin. And we go back. Then we're also going to look at we're kind of looking at the functionality as well.
We can show resources.
Yeah.
And if you go through, it goes through the Alzheimer's Society of Ireland, the Understand Together campaign, talks about dementia elevator, different services that are available, and how to go about finding a diagnosis. And there's various organisations that have helped with this project.
Yeah.
And Family Carers Ireland in particular, with the Carers Campaign booklet, and the Carers Looking After Yourself by the Alzheimer's Society. So these are different resources that are designed to help enhance the levels of resilience of family carers.
Okay.
Yeah. So as I was saying earlier on, the website is called takecareofyourself.ie. If you wish to go through and look at the website yourself, you are able to do so as you wish. It's live now, and if you wish to go through it yourself, you are more than likely or more than able to do so.
Yeah.
So we invite you to take a look. And
thank you, Kevin. And just to say, you can see in terms of the layout, and the functionality and the design. I mean, the key feature of the website is this care journey, and a key feature, aside from all of the links to other resources and supports and advice, a key feature are the video testimonials of the family carers themselves. And one of the things, and we'll say about it a little bit about it in a moment, was one of the things, you know, our project advisory group and our family carers themselves were very, very keen to stress that if we were to develop a resource that was based on family carers' own stories, that in fact it had what we called fidelity. In other words, it had real meaning and family carers could relate to it. And that's why the carer journey is so important in the design of the web resource, because we recognize that many people who use the resource will actually use it who are at a different stage of the caregiving journey themselves, and they can go right to the area of the web resource that actually relates to them, or indeed they can reflect on becoming a carer and reflect back on what it was like for them. And so this notion of peer support is built into the website in the video testimonials. I use the word proxy support, perhaps not the right word, but you know, second hand, but it actually is a peer support with the person not being present in the room, but another family carer telling their story. And that's why our end care group designed it in that way. Absolutely. So what we might do now, Kevin, is you know, albeit we've given you a snapshot of the web resource, and there are some elements still to be developed, but what we would like to ask you is, you know, while you are health and social care professionals, thinking about and putting yourselves in the position of the family carers, would you consider that the resource would be something that you think you might recommend to family carers, or does it look like something that is different to what's out there already? Perhaps these are some of the questions, and we don't want comparisons with others. That's not my question. My question is, does it complement, or does it constitute what we'd hoped it would, a one-stop shop, as it were? So feel free to add comments.
Gerard. Sarah, with a comment, thank you. Have you done an information piece on FT and LB dementia? Pardon me, I may not be aware of the terms. As families experiencing these find extremely difficulty, and where behaviour is present, a lot of services, including LTC, are not in a position to provide a service to this difficult cohort of people. These carers need a huge amount of emotional support and specific education to manage the same.
Thank you, Sarah. Sarah, we didn't drill down into the dementia types and the differences. It's a good question, and it's a very, very, very reasonable question. And no, we I guess we spoke in general terms. Now, in the course of the workshops that we did, you know, several family carers, you know, would have described, you know, particular forms of dementia and the particular challenges that went with the different types of dementia, and we did. But in terms of the information, and we also provided a booklet to go with the workshops, a little booklet. But in essence, you know, we didn't sort of, you know, the website doesn't drill down like that into the different types of dementia as such, and it really is, it is focusing, and in some ways, you know, there is a case for giving that sort of information, and it is very readily available. And we know that when you click on some of the resources in our own website, you'll be brought to those sort of things. But we didn't drill it down or break it down into types.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah.
Gerard, would you like to move on to the next?
Yeah, we'll move on.
Particular question. Would you find this web resource helpful for family carers, given your experiences as a healthcare professional or social care professional? So we'll take a few comments maybe quickly on that, because we do have other material to move on to. So if you have any further statements to make, would you find this resource helpful for family carers, given your experiences as healthcare professionals?
Okay, and if we don't have any comments at this point, we're
happy to go back to them.
Yeah, we can pick up. We'll have time at the end. Oh, here we go. Francis again. Thank you, Francis.
Thank you, Francis. Francis says, yes, this is something I'll definitely be promoting. Thank you, Francis.
Thank you, Francis. That's encouraging. Yeah, that's encouraging. Yeah. Okay, very good.
So we'll move on.
Yeah,
If anyone has any other comments, do please continue with yourself.
Okay, so obviously, and again, apologies for the sound on that, Bill and others. But one of the things, of course, that we wanted to do and wanted to know, and was to ensure that this resource was suitable for the intended users, that is, family carers. We wanted to know, for example, whether the website itself was easy to navigate and whether the web content was meeting the needs of family carers. So it's all very well developing a nice website, and we developed, obviously, with it. We engaged with a professional website company. It's all very well doing that, but it's important that we know, does it work? Does it work? So and we conducted 3 workshops with a sample of family carers in a computer laboratory here in UCD, and we recruited the family carers with the support of many of the family carers